Let me ask you a question. Do you ever get that creeping, kind of unsettling feeling that your attention span is just, well, shrinking?
Oh, absolutely.
You know, it's just physically evaporating from your brain. You know, you sit down to watch a movie, you are genuinely excited about it, and then, I don't know, 15 minutes in, your hand is somehow already holding your phone.
Right. And you didn't even make the conscious decision to pick it up. It just happens.
Exactly. Or maybe you've had that really terrifying moment of realization where you look at your own thoughts and realize they don't actually feel like your own anymore.
Yeah, they feel like a mashup of like 300 different hot takes you scrolled past on a Tuesday afternoon.
Yes. It is so unsettling.
It really is. It's a uniquely modern kind of vertigo. You know, you are standing perfectly still in your living room, but internally your mind feels like it's spinning at 100 miles an hour.
Just completely detached from your physical reality.
Exactly. Completely detached.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because today's mission is to take a detailed chronological journey through this exact phenomenon for our deep dive today.
Yeah, and it's a really vital journey.
It is. We are mapping out the modern crisis of digital overstimulation.
All right.
So we're starting from that initial, cold sweat panic of a shrinking attention span.
Right.
And then we're diving deep into the actual neuroscience of phone addiction. And finally, we'll outline actionable physiological steps to reclaim our minds.
Which I think is the part people are really desperate for right now.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think the best way to look at the smartphone in this context is to see it for what it really is. It's a digital pacifier.
A digital pacifier. I like that.
Think about it. The absolute second we feel a twinge of boredom or a spike of anxiety or even just a moment of awkward silence waiting in line for coffee, what do? We reach for it.
We plug it into our brains to soothe ourselves.
Right. And the consequence of that constant pacification is that we are actively turning ourselves into passive audience members in our own lives.
Yeah, and I mean, the defining struggle for so many people right now, particularly those in their 20s and 30s, it really hinges on that exact disconnect.
How so?
Well, there is this jarring self-awareness that happens when you wake up and realize you've lost the ability to sit with your own thought.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You know, you have this generation of people who dream incredibly big. They have massive ambitions and incredible potential, but they find themselves just completely paralyzed when it comes to taking actual action.
Right. Like there's this massive gulf between the desire to create something and the neurological capacity to actually execute it.
Exactly.
It's the dream big, do nothing syndrome.
That's exactly what it is.
You know, you have a vision board full of incredible goals, a notebook full of business ideas, but your day-to-day reality is lying on the couch for 3 hours, paralyzed by a glowing rectangle.
Yeah. And the emotional toll of that gap, I mean, between who you want to be and what you are actually doing, it's honestly devastating.
It creates this racing mind that is absolutely exhausted, yet hasn't produced a single original, useful thought all day.
Right. And validating that emotional experience is really the first step in this chronological journey, because feeling that paralysis, it is not a personal failing.
Which is so important to hear.
It is.
Yeah.
You know, you are not inherently lazy or broken. You are existing in a high dopamine environment that is systematically engineered to harvest your attention.
Right. Every single app.
Every app, every notification, every infinite scroll uses variable reward schedules, which is, by the way, the exact same behavioral psychology used in slot machines.
Oh, man. That's so insidious.
It is. They use it to hijack your evolutionary biology. So you dream big because you were human, but you struggle to take action because your brain's limbic system is being artificially flooded and, well, manipulated every waking second of the day.
But wait, let me push back on that for a second, because I can hear people listening to this and thinking, isn't mindlessly scrolling just a harmless way to unwind?
Sure. Yeah. People say that all the time.
Like, I just work an 8-hour day. I dealt with a stressful commute. The world is chaotic right now. Shouldn't we be allowed to just turn our brains off for a little bit and look at something mindless?
Look, that emotional defense mechanism makes total logical sense on the surface.
Right.
We all crave an escape.
Right. Obviously.
But this is the major turning point in understanding overstimulation. Because we have to transition from how scrolling feels emotionally to the biological reality of what is actually happening inside your skull.
And those are two very different things.
Completely different. You think you are turning your brain off to rest, but neurologically, you are demanding that your brain work harder than it has all day.
The science part of this is where the whole innocent unwinding argument completely falls apart, right?
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Let's look at the mechanics of the default mode network, or the DMN.
Okay.
Your brain has a natural resting state. When you aren't focused on a specific, externally demanding task, like when you're taking a shower or folding laundry or just staring out a window, your default mode network activates. It connects the medial prefrontal cortex with the posterior cingulate cortex. And this is where your brain consolidates memories, processes complex emotions, connects disparate ideas, and essentially constructs your sense of self.
Wow.
Yeah, it is literally the birthplace of original thought.
It's the shower thoughts network.
Yes, exactly.
It's why you always figure out the solution to a complex problem at work when you finally stop trying so hard to solve it and just go for a walk.
Precisely. But constant digital input completely short circuits that default mode network.
Because it's never actually resting.
Right.
Yeah.
When you're scrolling, you're feeding your brain a relentless high-speed stream of novel information. You are never actually dropping into that default resting state.
You're just constantly reacting.
You are demanding that your visual cortex and your amygdala process a new context, a new emotion, and a new piece of data every 3 seconds.
Which brings us to the concept of dopamine and attention residue. Because it's not just the sheer volume of information, it's the constant switching.
Yes, the context switching is brutal.
You look at a funny meme, then immediately scroll to a devastating news story, then to a highly produced ad for shoes, then to a video of a puppy.
And every single time you switch context like that, your brain has to completely reorient itself.
Which takes energy.
Exactly. It requires a spike of dopamine to keep you engaged, but it also leaves behind what neuroscientists call attention residue.
Attention residue.
Yeah, your working memory doesn't just neatly close the file on the previous piece of content. A significant fraction of your cognitive capacity is still stuck processing the tragedy of the news story while your eyes are trying to process the puppy video.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Think about it like a computer.
Okay, I love this analogy.
Attention residue is exactly like leaving dozens of heavy, demanding background apps open on your laptop. You might be staring at a completely blank desktop screen thinking, look, I'm resting my computer.
Right.
But the internal fan is screaming, the laptop is burning hot to the touch, and the battery is draining at 1% every minute because the processor is working overtime trying to keep 50 different tabs active in the background.
Yes. That is your brain on a scrolling binge.
It looks like you're resting, but internally your operating system is overheating.
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is the vital difference between resting your physical body and regulating your autonomic nervous system.
Okay, break that down for us.
So, in our evolutionary biology, we have the sympathetic nervous system, which drives our fight or flight response. And we have the parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for rest and digest.
Right, the two main gears.
But according to polyvagal theory, when the system gets completely overwhelmed by microstressors, like, fire hose of overstimulating digital data, it defaults to a third biological option.
Wait, a third option?
Yeah, a dorsal vagal freeze state.
That is the most mind-blowing revelation of this whole journey. The idea that scrolling is actually a physiological trauma response masking itself as relaxation.
It really is. It's wild.
It's like a deer in the headlights. The deer isn't chilling out. The deer isn't relaxing on a Friday night. The deer is physically paralyzed by an overwhelming stimulus.
That is a perfect way to describe it. When you are doom scrolling for hours, your body is immobile on the couch, but your nervous system is in a state of high alert.
Just flooded with adrenaline and stress.
You are flooded with cortisol and stress hormones, completely dysregulated. It is a biological shutdown. Overstimulation masquerading as relaxation.
Wow.
And that is the biological reason why you can scroll for 3 hours, finally stand up, and feel more exhausted, more anxious, and more depleted than you did before you sat down.
Because you didn't rest. You survived a 3-hour stress event.
Exactly.
Okay, so if we've diagnosed the problem, if we know that the digital pacifier is keeping us in this perpetual, exhausting freeze state and utterly destroying our default mode network, how do we actually escape?
That's the million-dollar question.
How do we thaw out the freeze and truly reset the nervous system? Because we can't just, throw our phones into the ocean and move to the woods. We have to live in the modern world.
Right. And the actionable phase of this journey requires a highly structured, holistic approach to healing the brain.
So it's not a quick fix?
No, it's a complete nervous system reset, a structural dopamine detox.
Oh.
Quitting the overstimulation means actively replacing the scrolling with specific, intentional activities that rebuild your attention span.
Okay, so let's walk through the chronological roadmap we're exploring, which tackles this through 5 core lifestyle shifts. Let's start with those 5, because this isn't just about sitting in an empty room staring at a wall to avoid your phone.
No, definitely not.
You have to actively build new neural pathways. So the first major replacement in this journey was learning a new language, building polyglot habits.
Yeah. Learning a language is the ultimate friction-based activity, which is the exact opposite of the frictionless scroll.
Friction is good here.
Very good. When you study a new language, you are engaging neuroplasticity. You are forcing the brain to create new synaptic connections through active recall and delayed gratification.
You're making it work for the reward.
You are quite literally repairing the prefrontal cortex's ability to focus on a single difficult task without expecting an immediate chemical reward.
That makes total sense. You are replacing passive consumption with active creation.
Exactly.
And the second replacement tackles the physical side of the free state, which is practicing yoga.
Right. Yoga directly addresses the dorsal vagal shutdown we talked about earlier.
The deer in the headlights response.
Yes. When you are frozen on the couch, you are disconnected from your body. Yoga utilizes somatic tracking and deep diaphragmatic breath work.
Breathing from the belly.
Expanding your diaphragm physically stimulates the vagus nerve, which acts as a brake on the sympathetic nervous system.
Oh, that's fascinating.
It forcibly signals to your brain that you are safe, moving you out of fight or flight and back into the parasympathetic rest and digest state.
And that physical regulation ties perfectly into the third replacement, focusing on plant-based nutrition.
Which is huge.
Which, on the surface might sound completely unrelated to screen time. But we are learning so much right now about the gut-brain axis.
The gut-brain axis is a critical component of cognitive clarity. People don't realize that an enormous percentage of your body's serotonin and dopamine is actually produced in the gut microbiome.
Wait, really? In the gut?
Yes, in the gut. When you consume highly processed foods, you introduce systemic inflammation, which directly exacerbates brain fog and lethargy.
Making you want to just lay down and scroll.
Exactly. Shifting to nutrient-dense plant-based foods provides the dietary fiber necessary to cultivate a healthy microbiome. This stabilizes your mood and provides the sustained physical energy required to stay off the digital pacifier.
Incredible. But healing the brain also requires changing how we consume information. Which brings us to the fourth replacement, dedicating time to analog reading, like actually sitting down with a physical book.
Reading a physical book forces the brain back into sequential processing.
Unlike a screen.
Right. On a screen, we use an F-shaped visual scanning pattern. We jump around looking for keywords, hunting for the next dopamine hit.
Yes, skimming. I do that all the time.
We all do. But reading a printed page requires sustained linear attention. You are retraining your visual tracking and your cognitive stamina. You're allowing your brain to immerse itself in one singular narrative without the threat of a notification popping up.
Finally, the fifth replacement is arguably the simplest, but honestly maybe the hardest for modern people. Intentional, mindful walking without a device.
Harder than it sounds.
No podcasts, no music, no phone in your pocket, just walking in silence.
The biological mechanics of walking in nature are incredibly healing for an overstimulated brain. Walking provides bilateral stimulation, the rhythmic left-right movement, which is known to help the brain process underlying stress and trauma. Furthermore, experiencing optic flow, which is the visual sensation of objects moving past you as you walk forward, that naturally quiets the amygdala, the brain's fear center.
So it actively calms you down.
It is the ultimate antidote to the static paralysis of doom scrolling.
But I have to ask, because all of this, the language learning, the yoga, the reading, the silent walking, it sounds wonderful in theory, but brutal in practice. If our brains are so deeply hooked on cheap, instant dopamine, how jarring is that withdrawal phase?
Wow, it's intense.
Does it physically hurt to force yourself into these low-tech, slow hobbies when your brain is literally screaming for a quick fix? I mean, sitting down to conjugate verbs in a new language when you could be watching infinite entertaining videos has to feel like torture at first.
The withdrawal is intensely real, both psychologically and physiologically.
Yeah.
When you first remove that digital pacifier, your brain drops into a dopamine deficit state. Your dopamine receptors have been severely downregulated by months or years of overstimulation.
Because they've just been burned out.
Exactly. So without the phone, you will feel agitated, restless, and incredibly bored.
Yeah.
You will feel that phantom vibration in your pocket.
I hate that feeling.
Your brain will aggressively try to convince you that there is an urgent email you have to check right now.
The rationalizations our brains come up with are incredible. Like, oh, I need to check the weather right this second, otherwise my whole week is ruined.
Yes, or I just need to see if that one person texted me back.
Exactly.
But enduring that discomfort is non-negotiable. Because engaging in these 5 alternative actions isn't just about finding a temporary distraction. It is fundamentally about rehabilitating your dopamine baseline.
Okay.
By forcing yourself to sit with the severe discomfort of learning a language or holding a difficult yoga pose, you are teaching your brain that the reward comes after the effort, not before it.
You are stretching the space between the impulse and the action. You're building up that mental muscle that says, I am bored right now, and that is completely okay. I don't need to instantly numb this feeling.
Exactly. And as you rebuild that muscle, as those downregulated receptors begin to heal, something incredible happens.
What happens?
The baseline of your neurochemistry resets. The things that used to feel like pure torture, reading a long, dense book, sitting in silence, focusing on a single task for an hour, they begin to feel deeply, intrinsically satisfying.
Wow.
The joy of slow, intentional living naturally returns because your brain is no longer deafened by the roar of digital noise.
Which leads us perfectly into the massive emotional and cognitive payoff waiting on the other side of this detox. The final part of this journey is about the ultimate result of disconnecting.
Right.
And it's almost ironic because you start this process feeling terrified of being without your phone. But the major lesson here is moving from being addicted to doom scrolling to actually becoming addicted to being off your phone.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this isn't just about tweaking your screen time balance or setting a timer on your favorite app. It is a profound paradigm shift.
Yeah, it's way bigger than just screen time.
You transition from living in a state of constant, passive reaction to a state of active, intentional creation. You are regaining the fundamental autonomy of your own mind.
Autonomy, that's the perfect word for it.
True wellness, deep thought, and genuine creativity require silence. They require boredom. They require a regulated nervous system that feels safe enough to let the mind wander, rather than constantly scanning the digital horizon for the next microscopic hit of data.
You know, it makes me think of being in a car. Letting your phone dictate your attention for years is like sitting in the passenger seat of your own life, totally blindfolded, while a Silicon Valley algorithm steers the wheel.
Oh man, that is a terrifying image, but it's so accurate.
You're just being jerked around, left, right, fast, slow, having all these intense emotional reactions to a journey you didn't even choose to take.
Exactly.
Putting the phone down, pushing through the brutal withdrawal, and engaging in those hard, slow hobbies. That is you taking the blindfold off, kicking the algorithm out of the car, and finally getting back into the driver's seat.
I love that.
It might be terrifying to steer at first, but at least you actually get to decide where you were going.
And when you are finally back in the driver's seat, you realize that the world outside the windshield is vastly richer, more complex, and infinitely more rewarding than the synthetic reality on the tiny screen in your lap.
It's like waking up.
It is. The neurological fog actually lifts. You regain the ability to think clearly, to plan for the future, and to execute on those big dreams that previously felt impossible to start.
So we've covered a massive amount of ground today. We started with that very relatable creeping panic of losing our focus and feeling like our minds were racing out of control while we dreamed big but did nothing.
We did. We examined the hard biology behind that feeling, understanding that our default mode network was being systematically hijacked.
Right.
And that what we thought was relaxing was actually a dysregulated dorsal vagal freeze state, just overflowing with attention residue and stress hormones.
And finally, we walked through the intentional physical process of resetting that nervous system. Putting down the digital pacifier, braving the discomfort of a dopamine deficit, and using neuroplasticity, somatic regulation, and sustained focus to retrain the brain, reclaiming the driver's seat.
It is the ultimate journey from passive consumption to active, intentional living.
So what does this all mean for you, the person listening? Why does this specific, detailed journey matter so much?
It matters a lot.
It matters because your attention is, without a doubt, your most valuable currency. It is vastly more valuable than your money. It is the finite resource that you use to build your life, your relationships, and your intellect.
Absolutely.
Protecting it, fiercely guarding it from the systems designed to harvest it, is the only way to ensure that the thoughts in your head remain authentically your own.
Your lived experience is quite literally composed of what you choose to pay attention to. If you pay attention to the infinite scroll, your life will reflect that fractured, anxious reality.
And that brings me to one final thought I want to leave you with today. Something to mull over the next time you find yourself standing in line at the grocery store, instinctually reaching for your pocket to avoid 30 seconds of silence.
Oh, that's a great challenge.
We know now that the default mode network, that beautifully quiet, wandering state of mind, is where our most brilliant, creative, and uniquely human ideas are born. It's where the magic happens.
It is.
So, if an entire generation has systematically forgotten how to be safely, wonderfully bored, what world-changing epiphanies are we globally missing out on right in this very moment?
A powerful question.
We'll leave you to think about that one. No screens required.